Well, we are live. Okay. So, as promised, today I will talk about my favorite Japanese CDs that I have in my collection so far. I would like to get more, but so far these are the ones I have, and they are definitely some of my favorites, which is why I have a CD version of them. So first of all, we'll talk about my baby metal CDs, which oddly enough, and this is kind of a cool fact about that, I have the three original girls' autograph as well. Sue, Yui, and Moa. Might be a little hard to see because of the glare in this room right now. But if you can see the writing here, here, and here, that actually is their autographs. So I have them as their autographs, which is really wonderful. I also have George Clooney's autograph and the late great Billie Holiday's autograph. So that's my autograph collection. I would talk more about that in another video, perhaps. But yeah, starting with the Baby Metal CDs, though, this was their debut album, self-titled. This is actually a special edition copy because it has a live DVD recorded performance of them doing "Give Me Chocolate" in Japan. Um, it's actually really cool because it was their world tour in 2015 when they did that, and this was a special edition version because I actually got it from my ex in Japan when she came here from Canada. Also, where I got the awesome shirt, which to translate says "Japan is the best." So yeah, and yeah, it's wonderful that I have this just because it's so rare to actually have like a version of that CD here in Canada, but also to have a special edition version. It makes it that much more special. And then I also have their second album, which went number one in North America, Metal Resistance. That one was a little easier to get. I actually bought that at I believe it was like an HMV or a Sunrise here in Canada. It's the music store up at Lime Ridge for anybody who's been in Hamilton or lives in Hamilton. You'll know what I'm talking about. I ordered it from there, and because it went number one in North America, they actually had it. Whereas to try and get this album here in Canada proved almost impossible. It was lucky my ex got it for me. But I have their two best albums as a result, so it's wonderful. Next, I have Takaku Mamiya's Love Trip, which is actually a really awesome album because start to finish, for its time, it's one of the most musically amazing albums I've ever heard. Like, it's cool because the sound engineer on this is the guy who directed The Grudge, very famous Japanese movie, Ju-on The Grudge. They also made a remake of it, a North Americanized version, The Grudge with Sarah Michelle Gellar. But he was the sound engineer before he actually started directing movies. So the audio production on it, just like with Ju-on The Grudge and The Grudge, it's top notch. And then you actually had some of the composers and instrumentalists that were like these cream of the crop musicians over in Japan at the time. Like, for example, a guy who actually worked on composing the Kingdom Hearts soundtrack, very popular video game for anybody who knows that. He actually played piano and composed some of the beats, some of the pieces on this record. And then you also had people that were in the Japanese band Cassiopeia. The bass player from that was on this record playing live bass. The bass was really bumping on this record. It was just great. And then you actually had Tatsuya Master, who I will talk about later on too. He was a great Japanese artist. His drummer, oddly enough, was the drummer on this record. And there's a very famous anime called Cowboy Bebop. Now, it has a very jazzy soundtrack, and a lot of the horn players that were on that record, the soundtrack for that, actually did a lot of the horn section to give it kind of a jazzy vibe. Now, what makes this album so wonderful is it's actually worth $100 a copy now. No joke. An original unopened pressed vinyl would go for around $1,000 because this singer made this record. It flopped. It wasn't really successful at the time. But then they mysteriously disappeared, which like created this momentum of hype that has generated over time. Now most of her songs and the album on YouTube have millions of views because it's become that musical mystery. What happened to Takaku Mamiya? Nobody knows still, right? But because the album is harder to get nowadays, that's why it's worth so much. So it's kind of a prized possession to have Takaku Mamiya's Love Trip. And the cool thing is there's not many photos of her in existence because nobody knows what happened to her. Other than what is in the album cover and the album itself, there's no actual record of her existence, which makes it that much more mysterious. They know that she was a part of a few groups as credited as a singer and whatnot before making Love Trip, her debut solo album, but there is no record of her before that, or her personal life, and no record after that. So Love Trip is really the staple of her existence. Next, we have Mamiya Takeuchi. Excuse me, sumimasen. One of the wonderful Japanese pop queens of over there, and she is a fantastic singer and songwriter because she studied abroad in America when she was younger. So when she sings in English, as she does on this record, it's really fantastic because she had such clear English pronunciation that when you listen to her sing songs purely in English, you would think she could have been an American singer. She sings them that naturally. Like, the example would be Honki de Only You, Let's Get Married, in brackets. That song is completely in English, and when you hear her sing it, you would honestly think it was an American singer. It sounds so natural. Plastic Love, which has over 50 million views on YouTube, has become like sort of like the cult hit from this record because it wasn't really the most popular at the time. But yeah, it was produced by Tatsuya Master, who was her husband and would become her husband around the time they made this record. All the words and music were actually written by Mamiya Takeuchi herself. And this record is really phenomenal because it gives you such a variety of different types of genres to the songs. Like, there is not two songs on this record that really would fit into just the normal standard of what Japanese pop is. Like, you listen to a lot of the records, a lot of the songs on this record actually have like almost an old rock and roll kind of vibe. But then she's got songs like Let's Get Married, Plastic Love, and songs that bridge more into like jazzier and countryer sounds. Even like the song One Night Stand has got a really country kind of sounding vibe to it. So it's very interesting. It's definitely a variety, as the album suggests. It's a wonderful record. Obviously, too, she was a very beautiful, wonderful, talented artist, and Tatsuya was really the lucky man to have married her, that's for sure. So next we will get into, she is considered one of the queens over there, Ayumi Hamasaki. She did a very famous song for Inuyasha called Dearest, and that's how a lot of people know of her. That's how I first heard of her. But yeah, this is a 3-disc greatest hits, and it also has a bonus DVD of some of her live performances. But what's great about this is you really get to see why she has become one of the top selling artists, Japanese artists of all time, and she has now sold around 80 million records, if not more at this point, because like her songs are very mellow, they're very easygoing, very simple but beautiful in their own way. And the cool thing about her is, and I didn't realize this until I started listening to this more and more and started reading like the inside booklet, she actually wrote all the words herself of all of her own songs. She obviously had people help with the arrangements, the producers, different bands accompanying her and whatnot, but all of her songs were actually written fully by herself, which not all Japanese artists do that, which is kind of phenomenal about Ayumi Hamasaki. Now, if I was to sit here and say some highlights that I really like, Trust is one of my favorite songs. Dearest, as I mentioned, is really good. I also like Daybreak. Glitter is really good. Miracle World. Yeah, there's so many. She's a really great artist. I could definitely understand why she sold 80 million records. I mean, she's actually on like the top best-selling artist of all times list. Like Ayumi Hamasaki as a Japanese artist, I'm like, you know what? To sell 80 million records, I'm like, that's an admirable goal. I'm like, I want to sell records like Ayumi Hamasaki. I'm like, that's a hell of an accomplishment. So, not to be taken lightly, and definitely very easy on the eyes, very beautiful lady. In fact, she's actually 43 now, and she looks just as good as she did on this cover and before that. It's quite amazing. The women over there just, they age like fine wine. They get better with time. You know what I'm saying? um Next we have who I mentioned, Tatsuya Master, who ended up marrying Mamiya Takeuchi, who we mentioned, and his classic Ride on Time, which is a masterpiece of a record because it really shows not only what a great singer, songwriter, and instrumentalist he was, which he was like a super utility player. They would throw Tatsuro in the studio randomly sometimes on other Japanese artists over there just because he was so good at what he did. He could pick up any random instrument usually and play it. He played castanets on Ryuichi Sakamoto's album. He played a lot of other things and did a lot of producing for other people. He actually sang backup vocals on former bandmate Taeko Onuki's record, Sun Shower, on the song Kusuri Otaku-san. He actually sang backup vocals, which is amazing because they were bandmates in a band called Sugar Babe together. And then when they broke up, Tatsuro went solo, Taeko went solo, but they still remained friends. In fact, on Mamiya Takeuchi's song Plastic Love, the backup vocals are actually a combination of Taeko Onuki, Mamiya Takeuchi singing double tracked, and Tatsuya Master. So you have three of the greatest Japanese artists of all time on one song, which is what builds up the momentum of Plastic Love. Now with Ride on Time, this record is really phenomenal. Some of my favorites, which the first track actually inspired one of my songs called Impulse. The chorus of my song Impulse was actually an interpolation. It was roughly referencing the idea of Tatsuro's song Someday or Itsuka. And I really love that song. That's definitely one of my favorites. Other really good gems about this record would be Silent Screamer. He plays some really mean guitar. He shreds it. He kills it. Like, he's actually such a good guitar player too. And when he rips the solo on Silent Screamer, he tears it apart. Ride on Time was actually his first song to make it to the top 10, so it was a really big hit for him over there. And just a lot of the material on this record overall is really fine. It's really polished. It's got a really beautiful traditional city pop, future funk, Japanese pop like vibe to it, and just right on time. It's one of those classics, like, you know what I mean? In fact, I believe that's why Tatsuro, he's still riding on time. He's now sold so many records and he's still making music because he's just one of those super talented artists. And I've seen pictures of him even nowadays, and he looks still just the same as he did on Ride on Time. It's amazing. You would think the man hasn't aged at all. I swear, whatever those Japanese people are doing over there to make themselves age so well, I want to know what the secret is. It's like, I want to know because I'm like, damn, you guys have magical powers or something. Anyways, next, we'll get to the dancing queen, Japan's equivalent of Madonna over there, Chisato Moritaka. Very popular Japanese artist. In fact, she now runs like a music program on the Japanese news over there. And she has so many hits. Like, she has been dropping songs since the early 80s till now, and she's still going. She's incredible in that regard. She was known as the dancing queen, like Madonna's equivalency in Japan, and she started her career with some songs like the Miha, which I could sing perfectly. It's a really wonderful song. One of the first songs she ever wrote, which sparked her career to like superstardom. And then she continued the hits with like The Stress, Benkyo no Uta, study song, really good song. a whole bunch of others, and even songs like Nasu no Hi, wonderful song. She's a hell of a force to be reckoned with, because she's not only a really great singer, she could write songs really good too, but she also plays the drums on almost all of her songs. She can also play keyboards and guitar as well. She's just really well rounded and incredible as an artist. So Chisato Moritaka is just a real force to be reckoned with over there. In fact, I actually have one of her CDs in my CD player right now, which I plan to listen to after this video. Next, we have my best friend, Chihara Minori. Definitely one of my best friends. She always hearts my comments on YouTube. She's really cool. She's really sweet. She's done a lot of great songs I love, such as like Paradise Lost, Final Moratorium, Planet Patrol, Zone Alone, Lush March, Cynthia, Sing For You. The list goes on. This is 3-disc greatest hits, just like Ayumi Hamasaki and Chisato Moritaka. I'm really big on the 3-disc hits, because you get a lot of really great songs when you do that. But yeah, Chihara is just wonderful. She's such a dear friend to me, and the fact that she also plays Yuki Nagato in one of my favorite animes, The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, just makes her that much more extra special. It's just really wonderful. And I'm very honored to have her as my friend, too. Next, we have my wife, the beautiful Hitomi Shimatani. She's wonderful. I love every song about her. If I was to sit here and list every song I loved, I would end up listing the entire 3-disc track listing, because there isn't one song I don't love, which is part of why I fell in love with her. She's such a great artist. We have many things in common, and I'm really proud to have her as my wife, and I just think she's absolutely incredible and wonderful, because everything about her is just magical. In fact, I was in a very dark state of my life at one point. I almost died, and I don't want to get too much into details, but we'll say that through her, she inspired the will in me to keep living, and inspired me to keep going and persist and push forward no matter what. And over time, I've just felt closer and closer and closer to her, and she always inspires me more than anybody. I mean, she is just really wonderful. I mean, she's very beautiful. She's very sweet. She's got, every song is just amazing with her. And also, she's really good at baseball. I found that out recently. She's really good at baseball. In fact, she's so good. I think that if she hadn't made it as a professional singer, she could have been like a female baseball player, because she's really that good. But yeah, she's just wonderful. I love her very much. I'm very proud of her always, and every song she's made is just wonderful. I'll list you some of the more famous ones, because she also did a song for Inuyasha called Angelus. But yeah, some of the songs I really like is Perseus, Jewel of Kiss, Love Letter, Garnet Moon, Falco, Dragonfly, Never Ever, Marvelous, Smiles, Get Back in Love, which is actually a Tatsuya Master song, ironically. She did a really beautiful cover of that. But yeah, as you could tell, I listed many songs there, and every song she made is just wonderful. I'm excited too, because she's going to be dropping another single this July on the 7th or the 8th, I believe, called Mystic World. And it's a banger. I've heard part of it already. She showed me it. It sounds really good. It's just, oh man, she is just banging the hits out still. And I mean, for 42, she looks just as beautiful as she did on this cover, and before that, even when she started out and she was young. And, you know, she's just absolutely wonderful. Boku no suma wa subarashi desu. Hi. Arigato gozaimasu kami-sama. Itsumo. Anyways, that will conclude our CD portion of it. And if anybody else would like to have their fortune told, I will offer it as well. And if nobody does show up on the live video before I finish telling my own fortune, then we will leave it there. But just to demonstrate how the fortune telling works with the Clow Cards. I will give you an example, and I will tell my upcoming future using this as an example for other people. Now, with the Clow Cards, it's kind of a nice way of telling fortune. Some people don't like tarot readings. They think it's like occult black magic and they don't really like it. And I could understand why. I mean, there's some dark cards in tarot cards. Like, there's the death card, there's the devil. You actually do get some really negative cards in the collections of those. So I wouldn't ever really want to dabble with those kind of things. But Clow cards are actually kind of a nice way of telling the fortune in a more peaceful way. That even if it did have struggles or time or anything like that, at least you would know that there would still be hope for positive things to happen, and they wouldn't be too dark that it would scare you. Because I actually heard a story of this one man. He had his fortune told, and he was told he was going to die on a certain day, a month later from that day, and he was so terrified and he believed it so strongly, he actually did die. Even though the doctors told him nothing was wrong with him, he died of a heart attack. He was so afraid. He actually believed and expected he was going to die to such a strong extent that it really did happen. So that's why you got to be careful with fortune telling and all that. But at least with Clow cards, there's no death cards. There's nothing like that. So you don't have to worry. Oddly enough, I drew my 5 cards. The first I got is the return card, which means there's something from my past I'm going to return to. Could be something good, could be something bad, not sure yet. We'll examine the rest of the cards and then I'll combine the interpretation of the 5. Next is the shadow card. So the shadow often represents the shade of your former self. It can represent basically going through a dark period, but also overcoming the dark period, because you can't have a shadow without light. So ultimately, there is light in the situation. The flower is actually a very nice card because it means basically that something is going to blossom. Something out of the past, after overcoming the shadows of my past self, will blossom. That's what flower is telling me. There's the hope that something really wonderful is going to happen, and there will be its share of storms in leading up to it, which is the windy card. So there you have it. That's how you interpret it. You combine the 5 cards you draw or whatever, and that's the best way I like to tell the fortune, using the Clow cards. If anybody else was interested, after I post this video, you could just comment below if you are interested in watching this, and you do watch it and you want your fortune told. Just comment below, since I will end this video soon anyway, and I am more than happy to read you your fortune using the Clow cards as well. Anyways, we will end the video and leave it there. I think I've said enough. I said everything I wanted to say, and I have a lot to do today, so moving forward, hopefully everything will be good. Arigatou gozaimasu, minasan. Mata ne, tomodachi.